Volcanic eruptions, devastating earthquakes, even contentious political campaigns all have an impact on our society. But a new study is revealing that it's not only the after effects we can measure, but there's a rise in social consciousness before the actual event occurs. Joining me to discuss the Global Consciousness Project is Dr. Roger Nelson. Doctor, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Can you explain how your international team is collecting this data?
Yes, we have a network of some on the order of 65 or 70 locations around the world where we have what's called a random number generator, a physical device that should produce just an ongoing string of electronic heads and tails. We take a sample of those every second at each of the 65 or 70 locations and send the result back to Princeton, where they are archived on a server. We then look at those data during very particular moments of time when big things happen in the world that cause really large numbers of people to share thoughts and more particularly emotions. Big celebrations, the volcanoes and earthquakes and so forth you mentioned, terrorist attacks like 9/11. And we make a prediction that the data will change during those events that are very important to human beings.
I find it very difficult to think that you could measure energy from a social consciousness. So how does that really translate?
Well, I think the first answer is that we don't know in detail how it works, but one of the ideas that we think is important is that it may not be energy per se, but something more like information. Consciousness, if you think about it, is a matter of a tremendous amount of information that's gathered and focused, and emotions too, even though there may be energy involved, really have a big component of information. We think there may be such a thing as an information field, which can interact with these random sequences. The data say, in effect, that we are connected with each other, even though we don't know about it. The data show that we are basically forming at a deep subconscious level some kind of interconnected network. It's almost as if we are operating the way the elements of a human brain might. The neurons don't know anything about consciousness. They just create it by doing their job. We know, for example, just from the studying our data, that emotions are important, that the level of emotion is critical in how big the effects are in our network. And we know also that there are certain kinds of emotions which, if they're present in the circumstance, for example, compassion. If there's a lot of compassion that's evoked, we see bigger effects. That suggests that compassion is a kind of model for the interconnection that we see. And it makes sense. Human beings are literally connected to each other by way of emotions like love and compassion. We don't think much about the underlying structure of that, but perhaps these studies like this one can help people pay more attention to that.
Doctor, it's a fascinating study, and I wish you all the luck, and I look forward to reading more about it. Thank you for joining us.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.